Every shadow holds a secret. Every seemingly tranquil facade can conceal a terrifying truth. In the annals of American crime, few names evoke as much chilling revulsion as Jeffrey Dahmer. A man who transformed the mundane into the macabre, the human into the horrific. This is not just a recounting of facts. It's an unsettling journey into the genesis of a monster, exploring the subtle shifts, the dark fascinations, and the critical junctures that forged one of history's most notorious serial killers. Our story begins not in a dungeon, but in the seemingly idyllic, unassuming suburbs of Bath, Ohio. Born on the 21st of May, 1960, to Lionel and Joyce Dahmer, Jeffrey's arrival was, by all accounts, a moment of joy for the young couple. Lionel, a diligent research chemist, and Joyce, a passionate, though often emotionally volatile homemaker, had aspirations for their firstborn. Yet, even in infancy, there were whispers of difference. Joyce, in particular, suffered from intense postpartum depression and later confessed to being a heavy user of prescription drugs during her pregnancy, speculating on their potential impact on her son's development. Whether this contributed to Jeffrey's later psychological profile remains a subject of intense debate, but it certainly set a precedent for a household often fraught with tension and emotional instability. As Jeffrey grew, his introverted nature became increasingly pronounced. He was a quiet, almost phantom-like child, rarely engaging in boisterous play typical of boys his age. While other children chased balls and built forts, Jeffrey often retreated into his own world, marked by a peculiar listlessness. His parents recall him being exceptionally shy, struggling to form connections, preferring solitude over camaraderie. Joyce, perhaps overwhelmed by her own struggles, often described Jeffrey as being limp as a baby, lacking the typical infant's vigor. This early assessment, whether accurate or tinged by her own depression, hints at a deeper, underlying passivity that would later contrast chillingly with the violence he would inflict. School offered little solace or integration. Jeffrey was an average student, often drifting through classes, described by teachers as intelligent but unmotivated, lacking focus. He displayed no particular academic brilliance, nor any overt behavioral issues that would raise significant red flags. He was simply there, a background character in his own life. His burgeoning interests, however, were anything but ordinary. While other boys might collect comic books or sports cards, Jeffrey's burgeoning fascination was far more macabre. Around the tender age of 10, an unsettling hobby began to consume him. Jeffrey became obsessed with death, specifically the dissection of deceased animals. Roadkill, squirrels, cats, dogs, even birds became his morbid treasures. He would retrieve these lifeless creatures, often from the roadside near his home, and bring them to a small, secluded shed in the backyard. This shed, ordinary to any passerby, was transformed into his secret laboratory of the macabre. Inside this makeshift sanctuary, away from prying eyes, Jeffrey meticulously dismembered the carcasses. He would skin them, study their internal organs, bleach their bones, and sometimes even preserve certain parts in formaldehyde. This wasn't merely a fleeting curiosity. It was an intense, ritualistic pursuit. His father, Lionel, a man of science, sometimes observed Jeffrey's interest, even showing him how to properly clean and preserve bones. He saw it as a potential gateway to a scientific career, never suspecting the dark psychological undercurrents fueling his son's grim hobby. Lionel later expressed profound regret, realizing he had, unknowingly, provided tools and tacit approval for what would become the early training ground for a future serial killer. This shed, filled with the stench of decay and chemicals, was where Jeffrey first learned to manipulate flesh, where his fascination with control over life and death began to fester.